so we've got people that want to be here, right? And we have a lot of pressure to build real estate. And there is a lot of debate about the type of real estate that we build, the affordability of that real estate, and the community we want to be, you know.
Welcome to the Cross Border Interviews, the show where we sit down with local elected leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission on the show is quite simple. Shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And for today's episode, we sit down with Canmore, Alberta Councillor Wade Graham. An hour west of Calgary, Alberta, 22 kilometers east of Banff, and nestled in the vast wildlands of Kananaskis country, visitors and residents of Canmore are energized and inspired by its incredible location. Canmore's beauty is enviable, geographic mind-boggling. They take advantage of the environment that surrounds them and are committed to sustaining it. With the arms of the majestic Rockies wrapped around them and a pulse that resembles a much larger city, being in Canmore feels larger than life. From the smallest village to the largest city, across every region of the province, Alberta Municipalities represents the communities where over 85% of Albertans live. AB Munis provides a united voice for 265 of Alberta's 330 municipalities, including summer villages, towns, cities, and specialized municipalities. As Alberta's largest municipal group, AB Munis listens to municipal leaders and advocates for solutions to their common issues. Additionally, AB Munis supports local governments by providing services specially designed to meet their operational needs. And they bring their members together regularly so they can share ideas and information so that their communities can thrive. Check out Alberta Municipalities at abmunis.ca and follow them on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, now called X. Councillor, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and talking about the great community of Canmore, Alberta. But before we talk about Canmore, I want to talk about the man behind the persona of councillor, if you don't mind, and talk about who you are and your journey into municipal life. So it's going to start with a simple question. Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Wade?
You know, my earliest memory of that is actually watching political. I was born in northern BC, and I was young, you know, 7 or 8, and there was an election, a provincial election at the time, and there was a bunch of ads on the TV, and it kind of just caught my interest, like, you know, what are those people talking about? And I remember being drawn more to the I think they were the social credits way back then, you know, and just, you know, as a young child being like, you know, that kind of sounds like the way we should behave as a society, and talking with my parents about that and how they felt about that, and they probably did vote social credit way back then, but I remember that being my earliest memory of political engagement. I was young. Yeah.
So how did that election turn into a desire to serve as a municipal councillor in Canmore, Alberta? Because I can imagine there's probably a journey from northern BC to Canmore. But was politics always in your blood after that election? Was municipal, or were you more drawn to the provincial and federal levels?
Honestly, I was more drawn to advocacy. I was more of an advocate, of a political commentator, than somebody that actually wanted to be in the ring. And you know, Canmore is a very, very passionate town. A lot of well-educated people here. A lot of people with time to have opinions and do research. And I had just moved to Canmore in 2010, I believe it was. My wife at the time and I had moved here. I was from Banff. I was young, naive, and very aspirational. And somebody came to me and said, you should be on council. And I was like, well, great. You get 25 people to sign my nomination form, and I'll do it. And that was the level of, I'll say, the arrogance that I had at that point in time. Just moved to town, didn't really know that many people here, and thought I would run. And it was a very humbling experience for me. I
How
learned a lot
so?
of things. I came in, I think, fourth last, in a slate of 17. I didn't understand the nuances of many topics. I didn't. I was rightfully not elected, quite honestly. Looking back on it and knowing what I know now.
So what did you take from that election that you brought forward to the next election where you did get elected?
Well, there was a lot of time between that. I had helped out with two federal campaigns. I had helped out with some provincial campaigns. I helped out with provincial leadership campaigns, and just got to know what it meant to run a campaign, and learn what politics was really all about. From there, I got deeply into advocacy. I started a group called Canmore Politics to discuss local political issues here in Canmore. And at the time, people were like, we don't need another Facebook group to discuss these things. And I was like, well, cool. And I wasn't running at the time, but I just wanted a forum for people to discuss. And it grew, and it had a really healthy conversation. And I had some moderators that had some really strict ideas on how conversation should and shouldn't happen. There was no name calling. There was we debated issues, and that group, for all its faults and warts, I think was a really healthy place for a lot of that conversation to happen.
Do you think that happens in today's age, though?
I'm
Because
sorry.
do you think that healthy conversation happens in 2025, looking back on when you first started that Canmore Politics page? Because I'll be the first to admit, I see the void that is social media in today's age, and people scream and yell, and you go talk to people on the street and they don't know what's going on. I think there's been a shift in the way that people engage online compared to today, compared to about even 15 years ago, 10 years ago. For you, seeing what you created and seeing how it is today, would you say there's been a massive shift?
Yeah, certainly. Um, I'm one of the few municipal leaders with a consistent, and I would say regular social media presence, especially on Facebook. And I don't blame anybody for not wanting to be there, not one iota. If people say to me, I don't want to be in that environment, and I don't want to share my ideas out there, I understand why. I have taken a very different approach, and I am there, and I do share my ideas, and I don't have like long, fulsome debates on Facebook. I don't think that'll ever be the place for that. But I will retort people if you're blatantly wrong. If you're just sharing an idea or an opinion, it's sure. But if you're blatantly wrong, I will correct you with what I think are the facts.
Can I challenge you on that?
Sure.
I'm not trying to be controversial right now, but I recently, last year, I spoke to a counselor from Northern Alberta and said, just because you think they're blatantly wrong doesn't mean that they think they're blatantly wrong. They think what they're saying is right. So
Mm.
how do you engage with people who, and for those who are about to send emails, please send them to me, because this is me saying this, not the counselor saying this. How do you get to the opinion that you're in the right and they're not? Is it just they're not understanding what the facts are? And then we can get into a whole story about what facts are, and especially in this world that we live in right now. But you know what you are talking about because you get the reports from council, you get the reports from administration, you get the background information. They're getting secondhand information. So how do you challenge someone's truth and understanding of what an issue is when they think it's right, and they will challenge you to the end of the earth knowing that they believe is right.
So there are people that you're never going to change their mind, for starters, and I really don't spend a lot of time with those folks, quite honestly. I do spend time with more open-minded people, and if they say your budget was $25 million when it was $100 million, I'll just send them a link and say, yeah, over here it says it's $100 million. I'm not going to get into the ethics and moralities and blah 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 blah, but if there's some just pretty cold hard facts, I'll point you in the right direction to get the information that I think you need. But yeah, is social media a place for politicians right now? Well, yes and no. I think we all play a role out there, and you're watching play out live what politicians have done with social media presences, for good or for bad. And I try desperately to be on the right side of history as much as I can, as far as my values and morals are concerned, and I will stand up and fight for what I think is right, and I will do that publicly.
I can imagine you've come to the realization after being in office for your time that every decision you make, every motion you make, every vote you take is going to be challenged, is never going to be agreed upon universally within your community. How do you make the best decision for your community? Because you, at the end of the day, have to raise your hand, have to cast that vote. And there are people, and Canmore's not any different than the guest. There's probably a bit of a more affordability challenge that is going on in Canmore that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But how do you make the best decision for your community, knowing that not 100% of the people are going to agree on that decision you just made?
I think anybody that runs for politics thinking they're going to satisfy 100% of the people are delusional right off the bat. So never get in with that sort of idea. The decisions we make, not all people are going to agree with all the time. That's just a fact, and it's something you've got to come to terms with pretty early. That
is it hard to do that though? Because councillors want to be liked. That's why sometimes they get into this job. They do this. They're not going in there thinking, I'm not going to be liked by everyone. You're going in there saying, hey, I have most people voting for me, so they must like me. And then the reality sinks in of, oh, maybe people actually don't like the way I vote, and maybe they are second guessing themselves.
I've never had a problem with people not liking me. What I do aspire for is people to respect me. And I think that there's a big difference between that. And I see people and councillors stand up for what they believe in, even if I disagree with them. And I deeply respect that. I have to look at myself in the mirror in the morning. I have to get up and say, that was a decision that I made that I can live with. And if I keep doing that, then I'm okay. When I'm trying to make so-and-so happy over there or so-and-so happy over there, that's a no-win situation that I don't think you should play politics that way at all. I was talking about a gentleman with a friend last night that I know made a decision that was not in his best interest, yet was in the best interest of the community. And my respect for that individual grew greatly that day. And so that's how I try to approach it, that this has to be for the greater good of the community at all times. NIMBYism is real and true and alive and well, but I have to look at this entire town as a whole all the time. I can't look at that street. I can't look at that, sector. No, I have to look at the whole town. And from my perspective, that includes the natural world, the wildlife that we have here, and the environment we live in. So I take all those things into account.
While you may take those into account, we all have our own moral compass that we adhere to. We all believe in what's right and what's wrong. But it's a question that I've been plagued by myself in these conversations while I'm talking to people is, how do you make the best decision for the community when the community may want one thing and they may believe that it's the right thing for the entire community, but your own personal beliefs are telling you something completely different? Who wins in that internal struggle that people have when making that final decision? Because you're right, you have to make the decision based on the greater good. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. But you are the one who gets to vote, and you're that one voice internally who has your standard bearer, your guiding light, your guiding principles of what's good and what's true. But sometimes you have to go against that. So for you, is it easy to quiet your internal self, knowing that the greater good needs to overcome what you believe should be done?
Chris, I don't think that happens too often. You know, my moral compass, I feel, is fairly aligned with my electorate. I like to try to be that way, and so I try to vote my moral compass as often as I can. And at the end of my 4 years, the electorate will decide whether or not I was aligned with what they thought. And that's how I've approached this.
I appreciate that. I want to turn to not a controversial subject, but a kind of an issue that I've been dealing with and grappling with. And I wrote a column on this a few weeks ago about provincial jurisdictions, federal jurisdictions, and municipal jurisdictions. And you happen to comment on social media. I would love to talk about that. So I'm so happy that you're here with me. Wait. Now, I would hazard a massive guess that if I went to Canmore right now after recording this and I asked 100 people on downtown Canmore, what is the biggest issue that is facing your municipality? They're not going to be talking about potholes. They're not going to be talking about health. They're going to be talking about healthcare. They're going to be talking about education. They're going to be talking about cost of living. Now, the majority of those are not in the jurisdictional realm of the municipality. The municipality is roads, fire services, recreation, you name it. Hospitals, healthcare, not really in the municipal jurisdiction. They're creeping into it, but it's not there. How do you balance as a municipal councillor the realities that you live in with the understanding that downloading's happening and municipalities need to pick up the buck, or you're going to hear it because they probably know you as the councillor, your residents, more than they know their MLA or their MP?
Yeah. Where do I start on this one? You know, there's been lots of conversation about staying in your lane lately. And I agree with that a fair bit. You know, the federal government has a role, the provincial government has a role, the municipal governments have a role. Now we all kind of intertwingle and intertwine, sort of intermingle. But there are some things that are pretty defined, right? So, you know, if we're all going to stay in our lanes, then let's see what that really looks like. And there have definitely been municipal decisions where I have felt incredible pressure from the provincial government to decide things a certain way, and I took great exception to those moments. We just finished our budget. It's, you know, we've got roughly $100 million operational budget. $24 million of that is arguably provincial jurisdiction. If we were to cut some of those services, people on the street would be directly affected, probably negatively, right? We look at some of the social programs we have that we take on because the provincial government didn't really want to deal with that, but we felt it was important, and so we did take it on, and that has happened a lot over time. But we, over the last term, we've measured what we think are actually provincial numbers, and roughly 25% of my budget is arguably not mine. Should be paid for by somebody else. So if you want to have that conversation about staying in lanes, I'll gladly have that one.
But why do municipalities, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, Councillor, and I apologize for it, but why pick it up? Because you're right. If 25% of your budget, which needs to go to infrastructure, which is a critical issue for a lot of municipalities, if not every single one of them, the cost of doing business for infrastructure is going through the roof. And if you're using your budgetary items to go towards healthcare, doctor recruitment, which is a provincial issue, then what are municipalities should municipalities just not accept the blame for the fact that your quarter of your budget is going to a provincial jurisdictional issue? Because if you don't do it, no one else will. And shouldn't municipalities, as I said in my opinion piece, which again, this is Chris's opinion, please send it to me. Shouldn't municipalities just fight back and say enough is enough? Stay in your lane, we'll stay in ours. And if you want healthcare done, do it yourself, province.
Yeah, I think well, there's nuance to a lot of that, right? So a lot of those programs have been decades. This isn't something that I voted on 3 days ago just to bring in. They've been happening for a long time. So you could be harsh and just cut those out and say, I'm going to save 25% of my budget right now, just cut it tomorrow. That's going to have direct impact on people. And I think there's smarter ways to move those things, and that's what I would like to see happen, is that we say, yeah, this is a service that we have and that we're paying for, but we would like to see you guys take this up. What do you think? And having more of those conversations. Just this budget cycle, there was an item that came to us that was a very worthy item. It was about seniors care and helping affordability for seniors. And it wasn't a very big line item, but it was a provincial jurisdiction. Those are things that the province should be dealing with. And our council said in a 4-3 vote that we wouldn't pick that up, that we wouldn't move into those jurisdictions. So, those are hard decisions, and those are decisions that affect people. But
would you, do residents understand this nuance? Because you and I are municipal followers. You live it day to day. You wake up and you're a councillor of your community. I am one of these basic nerds who watches council meetings for the fun of it on a Saturday night, because that's what I do and that's what I like to do. But I can imagine when you go talk to people, when you talk about healthcare, they don't care if it's a provincial issue or a federal issue or a municipal issue. Like you said, they think it's the most important issue to the community. So they don't care who solves it. They just want it solved. Or do they understand that the province needs to do more?
Yeah. And I think that, I can explain to them that, I can point a finger over the province and say, that's their thing. Go talk to them. But I also understand that it's my role as a leader in the community to advocate on their behalf, to go to Alberta meetings, to go to caucus meetings, and, say on their behalf that, this is a service that they would like, that I think is worthy. What do you think about taking that up? And so I don't think it has to fall on deaf ears. I don't think I have to point fingers. And I think that there is a role for me to play as a leader in the community. And there are certainly provincial issues that I have weighed in on publicly that I would like to see changes for. And And I think that that's okay. And I have got my wrist slapped from time to time for playing in sandboxes that aren't truly mine.
I want to turn to Canmore as a whole now, if you don't mind. And before I
Sure.
start this line of questioning, I'm going to preface it as I have in the past. So if you've heard this before, just be patient because I've got about a 10-second spiel that I have to get out of the way. This is a conversation between the counselor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not a policy of council. This is the counselor's opinion and his opinion alone. Now, what he may say might line up with what's going on at council chambers, but at the end of the day, this is still opinion, his opinion. He is one vote on council and he needs a majority of votes to pass anything. So this, again, is just his opinion. For those who are about to send your emails, please send them to crossborderphotography@gmail.com and I'll file them in the appropriate location. With that being said, counselor, what would you say is the biggest challenge or challenges facing Canmore today, as of recording this episode in the middle of February?
Well, one, I want to thank you for that preamble. I think that's a really important thing that, counselors don't get to speak on behalf of council, right? So when I am speaking, I'm speaking on my behalf, and sometimes I have to speak in favor of decisions that I opposed. Every once in a while, that has to happen. If you don't understand that, go read some MGA rules. But what are the issues that the big ones facing Canmore? And affordability is obviously a huge one here. We have the biggest wealth disparity in the country. We have some of the most expensive real estate in the country. We have some of the highest living wage numbers in the country. We every day, and this is a sad fact, people come to me and say, Wade, I have to leave town because I can't afford to be here anymore. I've heard that conversation for 20 years. I have lost some of my best friends to the affordability crisis that exists here. This is a hard town to make it in. You will never make it serving coffee in this town. So that this is a town with a supply demand issue. We have limited housing supply because we have mountains all around us. We have wildlife corridors all around us. We have steep creek flooding challenges that limit the amount of land we can build on. And we live in an incredibly beautiful place. I wake up every day, look out my window and think, I'm so blessed. And the day that changes is the day that I leave this town. But so we've got people that want to be here, right? And we have a lot of pressure to build real estate. And there is a lot of debate about the type of real estate that we build, the affordability of that real estate, and the community that we want to be. Canmore is roughly 16,000 people. At full build out, we'll be about 32,000 people. That's a very different community than what currently exists today. Getting back to how I ended up in this chair, a lot of it was my advocacy work on how I thought that development should or should not happen. And go look up at Three Sisters development, and you can Google me and you can figure out exactly where I played in that conversation.
Can I ask a stupid question right now? A very stupid question. You're right. Canmore is an enviable place to live. People probably are trying to flock to that community because it has that way of life that people might be looking at. And When I first moved to Alberta, one person told me, don't move to the Canmore, Kananaskis area because you will not be able to afford it, even if you're 100 and you're just a journalist doing what you're doing. And I was like, okay, so that's off the map of where I'm moving. But the affordability crisis is not unique to Canmore, and but it's exacerbated in Canmore.
Certainly.
Municipalities do not build homes. I don't care who you are. Oh, okay. I'm gonna get a challenge on this statement. You build the infrastructure, you build the infrastructure to the housing units, but I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, and I feel like I'm about to be proven wrong for the very first time in 2025 on this show. That
Did anybody wave a finger?
No, never. This is huge for me. So before I ask my stupid question, why do you disagree that municipalities don't build houses? Do build houses?
This municipality is building houses.
Why? But that's not your response. But it gets back to the original question. Are you not doing things that are outside your jurisdictional purview, or do you have to because no one else is building?
Exactly. I'd be happy not to be in the housing business, 100%, Chris. But nobody else is stepping to the plate on this one, and I have to. We have to. And 20 years ago, Canmore Community Housing Corporation was founded by the town of Canmore. And to date, they own roughly 150 houses that are non-market ownership and roughly 150 houses that are non-market rentals. There is a fixed model in the appreciation and how those rents are allocated. And the town of Canmore has a very direct role in how that is played out. We just approved an ASP for an area we call Palliser, which is kind of down along the highway. You'll see, 3 or 4 big apartment buildings there currently. Some of them are affordable housing units, some of them are not. But we just approved a potential 1,300 new units there, of which the vast majority will be non-market housing. And we will fund that through the town of Canmore. We've been putting funds towards Canmore community housing for 20 years. And just recently, one of the things I campaigned on was, we called it a vacancy tax back then. Now we're calling it a livability tax. And 26% of the homes in this town sit vacant the vast majority of the year.
Because it's their secondary residence. Is that what that is? Is people living in Calgary then vacationing out in Canmore? Is there Airbnb?
They live wherever. Yeah. They live wherever. They have another place here, and they're not here that often. And we can tell this by utility bills and you walk down certain streets in this town, and they're dark. There isn't a light on for the whole block. Meanwhile, the guy serving coffee, the lady serving coffee, can't find a place to live. And if she does find a place to live, it's $2,000 a month for 1 bedroom. And they stay for 6 months. They ski a little bit. They climb some mountains. They have a good time, and then they're gone because they can't afford to be here. I'm a small business owner. I know the troubles that we have finding and keeping and retaining employees to do a job for when people show up here to ski on their vacation, that they can ski, right? Want to rent some skis? I need somebody at the desk to make that happen for you. So we really need a wholesome, fulsome community that includes everybody. And it is we've decided to bring in this livability tax to say, if you've got some vacant homes that you're not having anybody live in, we're going to charge you some more. And with those funds, we are going to go build houses for people that need to live in this community. Canmore is very much in the housing market. And if you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have said, no public entity should be involved in housing. I have very different views these days.
What type of
When
housing?
we build houses here, they, for just the regular market, you know, our average starting price is what, like $1.2 million. That's an average home in this town. And you know, prices have gone up. What was the number? That was the number yesterday. I think 30% in just the last 4 years. You know, those aren't sustainable numbers. We went up 8% last year. And that sounds great when you own a home, but if you're just trying to get into this market, best of luck to you. Really, really hard.
What type of housing is most needed in Canmore right now? Because there's a big fight among, and I don't want to say NIMBYism, because I think people have come around to the idea that we need housing, not just in Canmore, but in different communities across Canada. But there's a debate around, is it single family dwelling houses? Is it apartments? Is it townhouses? Is it condos? What type of housing would benefit Canmore the most right now? Is it that low in, and the affordable apartment rentals, the affordable condos? What are you looking for as a counselor of your community?
Yeah, I think, you know, I grew up in a single family home with a big yard and a double detached garage in the back, you know, and I miss that sometimes, right? I miss those features. But the reality is, from a municipality point of view, densification is required, you know, especially in a town where we have a limited footprint of how much we can build. And if we're building single family homes, we aren't really serving the vast majority of the market to be here. And there's a pretty good argument that single family homes are actually heavily subsidized from a, you know, we talk about sewer pipes and, you know, water pipes and those things, that those are heavily subsidized by more densification. They're not paying their fair share, essentially, single family home. So in my mind, we do need densification in Canmore. You know, you want to talk about accessibility and you know, transit and you know, those sorts of things. Urban sprawl isn't really a card that we have to play. And so, you know, we over in Palliser, we used to have a bylaw that said 3 stories was the maximum, and we've actually said that 6 stories is the maximum over in that ASP now, just so we get more units into that area without compromising, you know, quality of life or views. You know, the way the land is structured there, we can build it in such a way that everybody still gets kind of, you know, a nice view. Not that anybody has the right to a view, and a view will change, but you know, let's not kid ourselves. We're here to look at some mountains every once in a while, and those are important to people. So, you know, you gotta balance those desires versus the needs of the community. So, yeah.
Pointed question: are you on the right track to solve the housing challenges?
And ask me that question in 20 years. You know, I think as politicians, we all sit at the desk and we think we're doing the best thing we can do for now and hopefully in 20 years. And I'd like to think that we are. You know, I like to think that we are taking the bold steps we need to take. You know, this livability tax is not going unchallenged. We filed a lawsuit the other day. So we'll defend that here shortly, which is why I hesitated a little minute ago. And I was like, I can't really talk about this too much.
Yeah, no, understandable. I want to turn to my, because I'm cautious of time, and I just realized we're almost at the 45-minute mark here, and I want to get, yeah, exactly. Time flies when you're talking about municipalities. Who knew? I want to turn to every municipality has its challenges, and Canmore's not alone in the housing challenges. While it may be uniquely different in what you're going through, the housing challenge is there.
Sure.
But we all have the things that we're proud about when it comes to our communities, but we don't often talk about the accomplishments that have gone on in our community. We don't talk about the good things that go on in our communities because those don't sell newspapers. Those aren't the things that people are tuning into. We're turning into the negative things. So I like to ask on the show, what are you proud about? What is the accomplishment in your community that you can look at and you say, you know what, we do have our challenge, but we've got this going for us?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. Um, for me, as much as I disagree with some of the housing developments that we were forced to approve by the provincial government. We've done a good job as a community of recognizing the fact that we're not the only ones that live here. That elk and grizzly bears and wolves and deer and coyotes live here as well. And we've taken that into context and done our best to coexist with wildlife here. And I'm sure you're aware of a cougar that was killed a couple days ago. It had some kittens, 5 or 6 months old. A very prominent photographer here in town documented that. And this community is very vocal about situations like that. We pride ourselves in coexistence with wildlife, and we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we have set an ideal that gives wildlife and ecology a say at the table. And I'm really proud of that.
Are those the cubs that you just posted on social media that they went to the Calgary Zoo?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So if you want to go see two beautiful cubs, because I saw photos of them on social media, they're beautiful, but unfortunately, Hunter had to get them. An unfortunate accident, an unfortunate occurrence had to occur to put them there.
Yeah, you want to talk about talking about provincial jurisdiction, and that's not my jurisdiction. But am I going to be vocal about it? You're damn straight I'm going to be vocal about that. That's something that's very important to me and my community. So, I hope that there's changes at the provincial level that say you can't hunt a female cougar with kittens. You would never. I am a hunter. I'm a very proud hunter. I would never, and you can't, and it is illegal to shoot a cow moose with a calf or you do not shoot moms. That is a standard rule across the board. But for some reason, you can shoot a mother who has kittens that have lost their spots, which happens after about 5-6 months. And I've seen photos of these kittens, and I think they have spots. But apparently, that hunt was legal. Now, I don't know. That's a whole nother rabbit hole.
There's a whole nother episode of cross-border interviews that we could do just on that alone, let alone a few of the topics.
Super seriously. And coexistence with wildlife is something that I'm proud of, that we still have a lot of work to do. But it is very much in the forefront of my decisions, certainly at council, and I think a lot of our council members, and certainly this community.
One thing I've learned about mothers and their children: don't shoot Bambi's mom because everyone will get upset about that. So
no, you don't do that. You don't do that. I get a deer and an elk every year with my bow, and I'm proud that I have not bought store-bought red meat in 7 years. But the killing of a cougar mom disgusts me.
You're not alone in that situation.
I'm not alone.
I want to turn to a new segment that I've introduced in 2025 because this year is a big year for municipalities in the province of Alberta, and that is election season. Now, I'm going to be the political guy on the political show that talks about political municipalities, and that is, have you made up your mind if you're going to be seeking re-election in 2025 there, councillor, or have you not come to that decision yet? I know it's still a few months away, but got to ask while I have you your attention.
Um, I'm pretty certain that I'm running again. I've been coy about it for a little bit here, and I've been people come to me and they're like, "Are you running?" I get asked every day, "Are you running?" I got asked 5 times yesterday, "Are you running again?" It's really weird. It's great. It's super humbling, and I appreciate
Means people are engaged, though. I'm happy about that.
And I was going to be, I wasn't planning on really announcing until the summer, and I haven't filed my nomination papers, but yeah, I probably put my name forward one more time around for sure.
Well, thank you so much for telling us that. I want to turn to my last subject, and you talked about the being surrounded by the Rocky Mountains, being so interconnected with the environment. Now, people probably have stopped in Canmore on their way to Banff, whether it be international visitors or people in Canada driving through, and they're making a quick pit stop in Canmore and then going off to Banff. But I think, and I know this for a fact, Canmore has some of the best tourism destinations ever. And I think it's not something that we tell a lot because we often tell the big stories, the giant gems, the Banff, the Jaspers, the Drumhellers. But every municipality has those hidden gems. What are the hidden gems in Canmore that people need to take a moment and not just go get groceries or go get gas and then off to Banff? Where should they stop in Canmore to experience some hidden gems that is Canmore?
Mm. Canmore isn't your typical small town Alberta, right? We're just not. We punch way above our weight class in a lot of areas, and Chris, I'm not going to give you the so-called local hidden gems of Instagram has ruined almost all of those already.
Well,
So
you have some hidden gems. You have some things that you go, you know what? I think this needs to be a little bit more promoted.
but I'm not going to betray the locals and tell you about where all the hidden little waterfalls are and whatnot, but they're out there. However, I think we have some of the finest small businesses around here, and I think specifically about restaurants. And I'm not a foodie, but I sure do like my food. And we have, I just asked folks the other day, what was their favorite restaurant? I don't like the question, what is the best restaurant in town? Because that gets all competitive. But what is your favorite restaurant? And the number of unique suggestions was really fascinating to me. Like, there was probably 20, 25 restaurants that people are like, that's my favorite. And I think that's fantastic. So, not to exclude anybody, because I think we do have an amazing culinary scene here in Canmore, but Epi Canmore is a fantastic little place, a little French cafe in an industrial area that you really have to know about to get to sit down and enjoy a fabulous crepe with an amazing coffee. Great little place. We go there pretty regularly. I wish they were open on Sundays. That's the day I really want to go enjoy them, but they're not, and good for them. Good for them.
Can I just say something? Because it truly felt like you were like I was asking you to like make a Sophie's Choice question there. Like you were like it was like I saw the internal gears going, and you're like, I can't do it. I can't decide.
And then we've got Sauvage, which is a fantastic tapas style restaurant. If you get the wine pairing, 7 courses wine pairing, you will stumble out of there. It is decadent. It will cost you probably a car payment, but it's amazing. Crazy Weed's fantastic. Angkor I haven't been to, but people say fantastic things about it. Fergus and Bix downtown. There's the Three Sisters one. Three Sisters Bistro. I think is, for a value perspective, one of the best meals you're going to get around here. I miss Santa Lucia a lot. I know that's our pizza place, and I know that there was talk about them kind of reviving and doing a pizza by the slice on the corner kind of thing. I think that'd be amazing to come back. Yeah, there's not a bad restaurant. There's not a restaurant in town that I wouldn't send you to, honestly. But those are some of my personal favorites. So yeah.
Well, when I come back, I'm a pizza fan now. You may not be a foodie, but you don't get to my size without being a foodie. So
Yeah.
I will have to check out some restaurants, and you and I will have to go grab a pizza, a slice of pizza, and go grab a coffee as well. I will say though, and I jokingly said it at the beginning of the interview that when I first moved to Alberta, people told me not to move to Canmore because it was so expensive. But I've always wanted to live in Canmore because one of my favorite TV shows was actually filmed there. The pilot was filmed
Yeah.
in Canmore, and that is Everwood, the WB show with Treat Williams and sorry, I forget his last name. Yeah, the very first episode was filmed in Canmore. The school is used as the backdrop of the school. It's on it ran from 2001 to 2005, I believe. Chris Pratt got his start on Everwood. So Canmore has always had a special place in my heart. I know Kathy Bates was actually in Canmore to film one of the episodes. So Canmore will always have a special place in my heart, but that's just me being me, and there's my subtle plug to go watch Everwood again.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. No, I didn't know that one.
Oh, the very first shot when the Emily Van Camp and the main character are looking over, you see all of downtown Canmore. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I'll have to send you a photo of this after we're done. So before we go, final question. What makes Canmore such a unique place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
For me, it's, I said earlier that when I did look up to the mountains and it didn't feel like coming home, that was time for me to leave. And in 25 years, I look up every day in awe. They always look different to me. The mountains, they should be fairly static, right? They should be these amorphous things that don't really change that much. But to me, I notice something different every day, and they look and feel different to me every day. And I think that's just a really unique place to be. And lots of people don't disagree with me quite. I love the fact that I walk down the street and I know a good majority of the people that I see. I love the fact that when this community has needs, or when individuals or families have needs, or that this community really steps up. And I'm sure other communities do too. But when that happens here, it's just really really heartfelt. This is a very generous place. People are incredibly passionate about living and living out here in general. And there's not another small town in Alberta that I would be in before this one. And that's not a dig against all the other small towns in Alberta, but I love this place, and I will always love it. So I get why people want to be here.
Councillor, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sitting down and taking time out of your day to do this interview. It's always a pleasure to speak with municipal leaders from across Alberta and across Canada and learn about who they are and the challenges that our communities are going through. So thank you so much for taking time to do this.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the work that you do too, right? Not many people are going to dig deep into municipal politics. It's not glamorous. It's not it's not, Law and Order. But
To me, it is. To
yeah,
me, it is.
to some of us it is, and I really appreciate the fact that yourself and some others like you are really digging into the grassroots side of things. I know the premier gets a lot of press coverage, but when we replace a manhole, I wanted a little bit more spotlight on those sorts of things. I
Amen
appreciate
to that.
that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights from one of Alberta's local elected leaders. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platforms or on YouTube, and follow us on social media at Cross Border Network. For even more content and learn more about the stories and people we feature on this show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family members, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time here on Cross Border Interviews.